Assalamualaikum viewers, welcome to Cave Creations. In this video, I will give a brief introduction and summary of Shikwa, the complaint written by Allama Muhammad Iqbal. So watch this video till the end. Subscribe channel for more videos and don't forget to press the bell icon for latest updates. Shikwa, the complaint, was first recited by Iqbal in 1909 at a gathering of the Anjuman-e-Himayat-e-Islam in Lahore. It created a sensation. It has ever since remained one of his most controversial compositions, as passionately lauded by its many admirers as it has been criticized by others. Though only a few have expressed reservations about its poetic qualities, there are many who question its message. While lauding the achievements of Muslim warriors and the civilizing role of Islam, the poet also reveals a not too veiled contempt for non-Muslims, particularly Hindus. Shikwa may be regarded as the first manifesto of the two-nation theory, which was later elaborated in detail by Chaudhry Rahmat Ali and accepted as the basis of the foundation of a separate state for the Muslims by Muhammad Ali Jinnah. At the time the poem was published, Orthodox Muslims also objected to some of the vocabulary used by Iqbal, particularly the use of the word Harjai for God. Iqbal was obviously conscious of this charge against him when 4 years later he composed Jawab-e-Shikwa, supposedly a reply by Allah to his complaint. The theme of Shikwa is the poet's complaint against Allah for having been unfair to the Muslim community. After tendering an apology for the audacity of addressing Allah, the poet goes on to protest that if it had not been for the Muslims, the message of the unity of Godhead would not have spread in the world, and worshippers of idols and trees would have continued to flourish, and different races and religions remained indifferent. It was the Muslims who carried the all-conquering sword of Islam across the African deserts into Europe. They did not do so to acquire wealth or domain, but only to glorify the name of God. They fought against heavy odds, but carried everything from Iran to Rome before them. Further, any other people in the world, save the Muslims who had thus sold their lives for no cause other than restoring the greatness of God, what greater proof of their dedication to the cause could there be than the fact that even in the midst of a battle, Muslims laid aside their arms to turn to Makkah when it was the time to pray. And irrespective of their status in life, kings and commoners stood shoulder to shoulder in one line to pray. It was because of this single-minded devotion to God that they were able to extend their conquests to the furthest extremities of the world known to them. The poet asserts that it was the Muslims who liberated mankind from slavery, maintained the sanctity of the Kaaba, and adhered to the injunctions of the Quran. If they could be accused of breach of faith, had not Allah also been untrue to them? The poet laments the decline of Muslim power and taunts that Muslim haters fling at them. He is not so much bothered by the fact that infidels enjoy the good things of life, but is piqued by the fact that while infidels get everything here and now, Muslims are promised reward after they are dead. He wonders why, when Allah's bounty is limitless, Muslims should remain poor, or why Allah bestows favor on people who do not believe in Him. Although Muslims are no longer seen in the mahfils of the Lord, they remain as faithful as ever and are surprised that Allah should be angry with them. Can it be said that Muslims have forgotten the teachings of the Prophet or abandoned the traditions started by him and relapsed into worshipping idols? The Muslims' love for Allah may not be as it was in the days gone by, but that is not reason enough for him to abandon them and turn to strangers. They are still made of the stuff that could be ignited by the eternal flame, and if only God turned His gracious eyes on them, the old passion would be rekindled. As it is, strangers have the world's garden to themselves, while poor Muslims sit forlornly and await His coming. They are like withered flowers, but could some into bloom again. They are like Moses awaiting the light on Mount Sinai. The poet beseeches the Lord to lighten the burden on Muslims, once again raise them to supreme heights and liberate them from the taint of idolatry. The garden of Islam is in a shambles. Only one bulbul sings away lost in its own song's rapture, while all other birds have flown away and the trees have shed their leaves. The poet remains immune to changes of the seasons. Alas, if there were someone to listen to his song, there is no joy of living except chewing the cud of past memories. Maybe someone will hearken to the poet's melody. The poem ends with a note of hope, promising a new pact of faith with Allah. Don't forget to like and comment and share it with your friends too. Allah Hafiz.